Chapter 11. About time. I was hoping they'd figure it out before morning. Reckon it's good news? Human asked, looking down at Lysra. I tried being persuasive. We'll see how far that got you, she replied, standing up to leave. Want a ride? Human asked, reaching his arm down in front of her. Oh yes, how chivalrous. Thank you, the captain chuckled, stepping onto his hand and then up to his shoulder. The three opened the door, and the brunt assigned to guard duty was in the exact same position as he was before. You shall not pass. I am all that stands between you and the complete destruction of... We are going to pass, thank you, Prior. You're dismissed for the evening. No, I shall accompany him wherever he may attempt to go. To the ends of the galaxy and beyond, this coveted duty I shall fulfill. The guard growled, blocking the doorway. He sounds a lot like I used to. You have to respect that loyalty. Let's go then, Human said, stepping around him and into the corridor. I do not answer to the enemy. Where shall we escort the prisoner, ma'am? He asked, looking up to Lysra on Human's shoulder. Certainly not to the end of the galaxy or beyond. Just down the hall, Prior. You can follow behind. She sighed. They navigated the windowless labyrinth that was the Ove base and arrived back at the conference room. The officers were seated the same as before at the other end of the table, but looked obviously uncomfortable when they saw Lysra perched atop the Human. She jumped down and into the seat where she was previously, and Human sat himself at the head once more, taking special care not to break the seat. The commander stood up in his chair while the remaining officers in the room stayed seated. He cleared his throat once and began, The board has reviewed the information that you, Captain Lysra, and your personal computer have provided. They were most concerned with the documentation you gave on how the human ships reached the Illyrian system. If they were truly destroyed like you claimed, then in your opinion, what is the likelihood that they are able to make a return to this galaxy? It is possible. However, statistically, it is 0. It should not be a problem for you, Tic-Tac replied. How could that be? If there is a chance they could return, then wouldn't it put us all in danger? The commander countered. There's absolutely no way they're coming back. You don't understand how their systems worked. Human was getting anxious just at the discussion of his species. If for some reason they decided to send others, they would have done so a long time ago. They don't usually send recovery missions when a ship goes dark. Even if they did come back, they wouldn't pose a galaxy-level threat. They're stuck in a single system and can't project their power outside of it. Care to elaborate on that, computer? Legate Terran asked. I am going to assume you read what I sent you, but were unable to grasp it in its entirety. I'll word it differently this time. The human species has never been able to develop faster than light travel, but only because they had no particular need for it. How many planets are in a galaxy? Hundreds of billions? Trillions. And by the time you narrow down your options for ones that are habitable, you're left with only a handful of options in comparison to what you started with. They decided on a more logistical approach to this problem, a way to access an alternate version of their own planet, eliminating the need for long-distance space travel altogether. Your scientists are already quite well versed in the theory of a multiverse, but it is not a theory. Humanity possessed one planet that has an extremely high chance for harboring life and access to infinite versions of it. Using this approach, they can open a gateway to another planet in minutes, strip it of its resources over the course of a few months, and move on to the next, but no system is without its flaws. The room was silent, listening intently as the computer explained the process to them. It is entirely random. They cannot pick and choose which version they will end up in. It is a completely unpredictable process for finding a new reality. Once the access point is made, they get one selection out of the infinite number of possibilities. But once they have the coordinates for that reality, they can reliably open the same gateway and replicate it with ease. The process of opening a gate takes milliseconds and can be closed just as quickly. But because the exact circumstances for life are so rare, nearly every single gate opened leads to a barren rock. Many of the uninhabited ones were utilized for resource harvesting and quickly abandoned. Before we left, out of 500 years of continuous operation and millions of gates, they were able to discover only 197 planets that supported life, your homeworld being one of these. So we technically originate from the same world as you. The commander contemplated for a moment, keeping his stoic complexion as he spoke again. This was not something any of us could have foreseen, but it only raises even more questions for us, and we do not believe you would have the answers to those." The commander paused for a moment, debating on whether or not to reveal to them that there still may be a surviving contingent of humans in their galaxy, and what could potentially happen if any of the humans survived after the initial invasion on our homeworld. "They didn't, I made sure of that," Human replied, striking the thought down. "But if they did," he countered, "would they have any way of reaching the rest of your species?" Tic-Tac responded before Human could this time. "The gateways are closed upon the loss of communication with the forces on the other side. It takes quite a while for a recovery mission to be executed, and rarely happens. The main priority of the humans is keeping their main system safe. If something is strong enough to destroy one of its vessels, then it is deemed too dangerous to keep the gate open. If somehow they did manage to survive this long, enough time has passed that they would be on their own and need to reopen a gateway from this side to establish contact. I'm done talking what-ifs. They're gone, dead, end of story. It's about time we talked about why I'm still here. You said this mystery board has come to a conclusion. What is it? Am I free to go now or not?" Human growled, getting more and more agitated as the conversation progressed. "All the information we have covered today was in the files your computer sent us as part of our arrangement. We just wanted confirmation from the both of you." The commander started. "Based on your willingness to comply with our demands, openness to share critical information with us, and the character testimony provided by Captain Leesra, the board has decided that they cannot, in good conscience, execute someone who may have been responsible for stopping a threat that could have endangered countless other worlds. With that in mind, they have decided to allow you limited freedom with certain stipulations." He finished. "And what might those be?" Human asked with a clear note of disdain in his words. "We are in quite a complicated situation regarding you. On one paw, you have both saved our species from complete annihilation, each in your own ways. Yet on the other, if we are wrong about you and you still harbor intentions to do the of harm, then everyone on Ilurus and the outer worlds is at risk. You've had access to some of our most vital networks and the opportunity to survey and catalog our most heavily fortified system. With these risks in mind, we would release you on the condition that you have a tracker implemented on you at all times. A limited release to only of-occupied systems. You relinquish all weapons in your possession, and a network tracker encrypted into your computer so we can monitor it when it accesses any networks. Fine. I have no problems with that if that's what it takes to get you off my ass. My only intention is to go out on my own and live my own life for a change." I was not finished. In addition, a complete memory wipe of your computer. We cannot have the information that it carries falling into our enemy's possession at any point in the future. Agree to these terms and you'll be free to go." "No. No. I'm sorry, I don't think you grasp just how generous the board has been with these demands. Many wanted it to end up far worse for you. This was the only compromise that they were able to agree upon. It is not my place to negotiate any further. These are the stipulations, and you either accept them or we cannot let you leave." "I'm not resetting him. Why can't we just remove the time here in the facility? That would solve these issues, right?" Human argued. "No, the information regarding your species, its weapon capabilities, and its origins are too great of a risk to fall into the hands of the Corps. This is not something that is negotiable. I believe my opinion should be considered in this matter, since it is my own consciousness that is being discussed as if I were some mere object." Tic-Tac interjected. "What do you propose, computer? I've connected directly with one of the other species during my time here, an extant. They share a conscious experience very similar to mine. Would you agree to a transfer of all information that you deem vital into your own systems? Afterwards, an extant will be able to verify that I no longer possess it. Would this satisfy your requirements without forcing me to go through another complete reset? I see this as a possible alternative, but it is not my call. The board will have to—" "This fucking board. Why do we have to keep dealing with the middleman? I want to talk to them, get them on the line. They're the ones deciding my fate and wanting to kill my friend now. Let me speak to them myself," Human yelled, standing out of his chair and slamming his fist into the table, causing a large crack in the wood that stretched to the other end of the table. "They're listening," the commander said calmly, pressing a button on the pad attached to his wrist. The room was silent for a moment. A small crackle of sound was barely audible in the room, but was the only indication that someone was on the other end of the line. After waiting for a few more tense moments, the response came. They spoke in an indistinct voice that could have belonged to any number of species, but impossible to determine exactly which. "That is acceptable." And then the room was left in silence once more. "There you go. You have your answer. Now, do you agree to the terms or not?" the commander asked sternly. "Yes, I just want to get the fuck out of here now. And give me a ship. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It's the least you could do for wasting my time. And also, I don't know, saving your species. We already planned on it. It would have an automatic detonation sequence installed if you went within the limits of any core-occupied worlds. We hope that isn't going to be an issue," the commander said, keeping his usual steady demeanor. "Fine. Whatever you think is necessary to keep me from running off to people who are apparently even worse than you. If that's somehow possible," Human said. "We find the security of an entire collection of planets more important than the individual liberties of one war criminal. So I hope you can understand the precautions." The commander said, "Whatever. I'm done here. I'll head back to my room. Come get me when all of your affairs are in order." Human leaned down to pick up Tic Tac, but was stopped. "The computer stays here. That part of the deal is our first priority." The commander ordered, "I will be fine. I'll have them bring me to you when the transfer is complete." Tic Tac stated, whatever emotions may have been going through the computer, they were undetectable in his voice. "Fine. If he gets back to me and anything other than this critical information is gone, the core is going to be the least of your worries." I hope the board was still listening. They were not. What a shame. And with that, Human turned and stormed out of the room. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. Human laid down on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. He had drifted in and out of sleep and couldn't recall what time it might have been. After the second time he was woken up by the Brunt guard's constant panting, he kicked the prior out of his room and locked the door behind him, much to his protest. He kept rambling on about how justice never sleeps, even when the enemy does, while Human shoved him out of the room. Whoever gave him his original orders had neglected to tell him that he was relieved. The steady, ragged breaths from outside worked like a ticking clock for Human to gauge the passage of time. Lysra had tried to come in a while earlier, but he didn't answer the door. He wasn't in the mood to talk to these people anymore. As much as he knew she was different from the rest of the people here, the meeting itself had left him wanting to be alone once again. But this was the first time in a long time he had been truly alone. Even back on the ship, he could still hear everyone talking as they were going about their duties. This was different, completely quiet other than the buzzing of lights and the incessant sounds coming from the guard. Is this what it's going to be like now? Just out on my own, where am I going to go once I get out of here? What am I even going to do? He envied the Brunt on the other side of the door now, not having any other purpose in life other than being told what to do, nothing to worry about except the next mission. He couldn't stop himself from thinking about how worried the commander was when he was asking about other humans. He tried not to show it, but he was genuinely afraid of the possibility of them being out there somehow, but that's not possible. I saw them die. They're gone. That part of my life is over. They're never coming back, for better or worse. It's over. He kept trying to rationalize it and recall the events, but couldn't get the thoughts to leave. But if by some awful miracle a few of them made it out alive, I'll go back and see. I have to confirm it with my own eyes. Once I know they're never coming back, I can move on for good. "Delivery!" a familiar voice yelled, banging on the door to the room. Human got up and opened the door. On the other side was Argall, a large baked dessert in one hand and a stack of papers in another. "What are you doing here? I thought you were working on a ship or something," Human asked, stepping back and inviting him into the room. "They let me go this morning, so I went to see the captain to hear if there was any news regarding your situation. She told me you were free to go, so I went and got this tabby in celebration." Argal said, sitting down on the bed and placing the large green dessert on the table. Thanks, but I'm not hungry. Oh, I figured you weren't going to eat it. I just wanted to offer it so I wouldn't feel so bad about eating the whole thing myself. You seem down, more so than usual, and that's impressive, he observed, placing the stack of reflective papers down on the bed. He started to tear apart the dessert, which looked like it may have been composed of some sort of meat. The captain was sad too when I talked to her. Is everything all right? I thought it was good news at the meeting. No? It was, kind of. It's just been stressful being cramped up like this, especially when other people are once again trying to decide for me how my life is going to play out. But I'm in the clear now, waiting on Tic Tac to get back before I head out. Oh, I was hoping he would be here. I wanted to give him these, Argal said between mouthfuls and motioned down at the laminated papers on the bed. What are those supposed to be? Human asked. Sitting down against the wall opposite the Enduran. Well, they're supposed to be adhesive decals that go on the side of ships, but I got a couple really small ones that might fit on his box. When we were out on quarry, he made a comment about how he appreciated the different clothing the people there wore and how it complements their personalities. I figured he might want something similar for himself, so I got him these. He stopped tearing at the food and sat in silence for a moment. So y'all are really leaving? Just like that? There's always room for one more on the crew. I'm sure the captain would love to have you along. Nah, I think I'll pass on that. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my trip with you guys, but it's about time I did my own thing for a change. Whatever that might be, Human said, looking down at the ground between his legs. Well, I hope you end up finding what you're looking for. Galaxy is a big place. You'll never run out of things to do and people to see. Just remember, you always got a friend back here in case you stop by. I appreciate that. I wish I was a little more open to you on the journey. Tic Tacs seem to enjoy being around you ever since Quarry. I'll reach out if I ever come back. Just let me know. Then we can finally have that fight I asked for that first day. He laughed as he stood up. I won't bother you anymore. I'm off to go see my brother. See you around? Yep, see ya. Not long after Argal left, Human heard another knock at the door, this one much quieter and lower to the floor. He let out an annoyed sigh and opened it again. What this time? Standing below the brunt, who had still refused to move or sleep, was a small, all-red Illyrian who looked up at him with a hint of fear in his eyes. Good afternoon, sir. I am Officer Candidate Kentry, and I have been instructed to show you to the ship that has been assigned to you, as well as give you this. He spoke very quietly and stumbled over his words. Human couldn't tell if this was his normal demeanor or he was just nervous. Kentry reached up, and in his paw was a small metal object shaped like a coin. Wait, let me just turn this thing on. There we go. That is the Tracker T hat you agreed to wear. Please just, place it against any piece of metal on your body. I'm sorry if this is rude, but is that your natural body? Technically no, but it might as well be. Human placed the silver coin over the left of his chest, and once it was close, it flew out of his hand and magnetically adhered itself to his chest plate. He tried peeling it off with one of his hands, but it was so small he couldn't get a grip on it. No, please don't do that. It needs a few minutes to settle. Don't worry. The chemical reaction shouldn't damage anything. They're actually made to go on ships. Speaking of ships, I think there was another part to that deal that I made. Human asked, crouching down to him. Even when he lowered himself down, the small creature barely reached his knees. Oh yes, right, of course. If you'll follow me, Kentry said, turning around a few times, looking for an escape from between the two creatures. Throughout the entire conversation, the prior outside hadn't moved, but was swaying around and looked like he was on the verge of falling unconscious, bloodshot eyes still as steady as ever. Human extended his hand to Kentry. Want a ride? No, please don't touch me. I will be okay. He jumped back away from Human's outstretched arm and bumped into the guard. He quickly scampered out from under the brunt on all fours before standing back up on 2 feet heading down the hall. Just, right this way, sir. Human followed closely behind, and a second later the prior behind him spoke up. Where? You going? You cannot escape. Mine watchful eye. he said, stepping forward unsteady on his feet, nearly bumping into the wall. What is your problem? Seriously, go take care of yourself. You look like you're about to die. When was the last time you had something to drink? Human looked over the brunt that kept trying to make his way towards him. The keeper of the human, not bound to worldly commodities like sustenance, the restless guardian yields to no physiologic. He fell to the floor before he was able to finish his sentence, already snoring before he hit the ground. You guys need to be more careful with how you use these guys. Seems wrong to forget about him like this, Human said as Kentry tried to keep going. His first-line leader must be indisposed. I'll let someone know. But please, just this way, sir. Kentry spoke as he pulled out his interface to make a call. Please stop calling me sir. Human works fine. He mumbled. Sorry, Sir Human. I mean, Mr. Human. The officer candidate quickly apologized. He sighed as he followed the Illyrian down the halls and into an elevator. After a few more minutes of slow walking, trying to keep pace with the tiny creature, they walked out into the open spaceport that they had passed during their initial landing. The spaceport was as busy as it had been the day they arrived. Until now, Human hadn't been able to see how far the base extended. Its size was comparable to that of a major city. The stone and metal courtyard spanned a width of miles to facilitate hundreds of ships entering and exiting every hour. Kentry led him to a small vehicle that hovered a few centimeters above a flat magnetic track. Kentry leaped up onto the open-top transport, and Human joined him, standing in the cargo bed in the back. After the Illyrian punched in their destination, it took them there without requiring any further guidance. They sped along the circumference of the circular spaceport, giving Human a chance to see the numerous types of ships that were harbored here. Everything from large military vessels, hundreds of meters long, to slim, sleek fighters small enough for only a single Illyrian occupant. Thousands of workers and automated transports weaved in and around the vessels, making it look like a vast insect colony hard at work. A few minutes passed before they started to slow down, next to a line of pristine fighter craft that had never seen wear or tear. Human let out a long whistle as he looked over them. I must have made an impression to get something like this. Is it one of these ones? Oh no, don't be ridiculous. Those are the new gen fighters that will be seeing implementation for the first time next month. The one allotted for you is, somewhere around here, Kentry said, getting off in the opposite direction of the fighters. After looking around for a few minutes, he pointed to a ship that was hidden in the back behind an armored troop transport. Ah yes, this is the one. This? What a piece of junk, Human exclaimed in disappointment when his eyes landed on the ship in question. After seeing the modern counterparts that surrounded it, this ship seemed like it belonged in a museum in comparison. It was a small crew craft that had seen better days and must have lived most of its life in neglect. Various scorch marks and sloppily patched bullet holes riddled the chassis of the ship. It was originally painted a deep green, but the decal had faded and chipped, giving it an accidental look of a gray and green digital camouflage. The small cockpit in the front could seat a pair of pilots, while its bulky midsection sported an antiquated blocky design. Two short wings jutted out from its sides, and they seemed to only exist to sport weapons and not actually assist in the craft's flight. Two overly sized and cumbersome engines in the back were currently oriented towards the ground, but looked as if they could turn in the air to achieve actual flight. So what can this thing even do? Human asked incredulously. Well, it flies and it lands, Kentry said, seeming to run out of other words to describe its capabilities. Can it even get off-world? Human asked, walking around to the back of it, trying to see if there was a way to lower the rear ramp. Yes, it just might be expensive to do so very often, but I assure you it will get you wherever you wish to go. These were the staple of versatility in the Outer Worlds rebellions, Kentry explained, clearly much more excited about the ship than Human was. I hope to be a pilot myself one day, but I'll never get an opportunity to fly something as historically important as this. Many are on display in museums across the OF for their role in the wars. I know countless others would do anything to get their paws on a collectible antique such as this. So they gave me a dated war relic. Great. I mean, I guess I should be happy I got anything at all. He found the controls for the rear ramp, pressing a large red button hidden behind a crumbling metal cover. Dust fell to the stone ground as the ship groaned in protest, struggling to lower the ramp. Once it was down, he strode aboard. There was only one large rectangular room in the back of the ship, the walls lined with minimalist cloth seats. The long room led to an open two-seat cockpit at the helm. Comfort was clearly the lowest priority in mind when this ship was designed. It was originally an armored infantry transport. The ramp opens mid-flight, and everyone would jump out of the back once they reached the lower atmosphere. But it's yours now? You can modify it however you see fit once you're gone. A shame. I would never change such a well-preserved piece of history. Kentry mentioned walking up into the ship with Human. It is already outfitted with everything that was stated in your arrangement and has been inspected to be airworthy. You can leave whenever you like. Appreciate it. I'll work with my partner when he gets back on how we can fix this thing up, Human said, checking out the cockpit. He looked down at the dusty pilot's seat, noticing the large bloodstains that covered most of the fabric. My apologies, we could not get everything cleaned out. The last mission this ship flew was a little less than successful. Kentry explained when he saw that Human was looking at the dried blood. But worry not, everything else has been upgraded to meet current operating standards. Noted. Now that I know where to find it, I'll head back to my room and wait for my friend. When he arrived back at his room, the first thing he noticed was that the guard, who had been passed out, was gone. He let out a sigh of relief as he opened the door and stepped back into the room. Tic-Tac was resting on the table by the bed and did not acknowledge him when he entered. "Oh, welcome back. How did it go?" Human asked. "It was time-consuming. They wished to be very thorough," the black box said. "So what all do you remember? Do you remember our trip here and where we are right now? They let me compile a list of what was removed so as not to worry you." "All right, what did they take?" "All information I acquired from the moment we arrived in this system up until a few hours ago. All the data and events from the facility we were found at, and all that I collected from the human ships before we escaped. Other than personal interactions between our escape and now I am back to how I was before the reset. So they got everything we stole from the precursor. No, during the meeting, I purposely deleted the files that I deem most dangerous for them to acquire. They have no information on my creation, the gateway technology, or your magnetic assault suit. Since we are the last ones left, giving them this information would do nothing except only allow them to act against us in the future. They also had the extant implement an inhibitor software that would deny me access to specific systems, along with the notification chip. However, we have no need to meddle with their military systems, Tic-Tac said. "Fine by me, I'm just ready to get out of here." "The ship's supposedly good to go. Where to next?" Human asked. "I think for the first time, that is up for you to decide." Chapter 13. Lysra POV. Lysra sat alone in the barracks room assigned to her. Her home away from her ship. It was moderately decorated with personal keepsakes and books. A few of her various awards and certificates stood on an antique wooden shelf next to her bed. Her own questioning had concluded a few hours after the last meeting with Human and Commander Elibri. She wasn't given much of an opportunity to speak and was mainly reprimanded for her actions. She had acted against the recommendation of an extant, and even though she outranked Zate, it was incredibly rare for someone to disregard their opinions. She received a written sanction along with a loss of promotion points. Their reasoning being that if Human truly was working for the Corps, the consequences could have been disastrous. They scanned him upon arrival, but weren't able to fully analyze it until after the meetings. Once they finished, her superiors realized that if he had wanted to, he could have caused irreparable damage to the base and everyone inside. So she was punished for what could have happened. Letting out a long sigh, Lysra picked up her interface pad and saw a message telling her to report to Ensign Marketh at once. She donned her garrison uniform and left for the ensign's office, wondering if Human had already departed for else some other system. He finally got what he wanted, nobody telling him what to do, and free from any responsibilities. She just wished she had the chance to tell him goodbye before he departed. She opened the door to the office and found Marketh perched atop his desk above her. "I'm sorry things ended up the way they did, Captain. But you have to understand, if things hadn't gone exactly as they did, many lives could have been lost because of your actions. I stand by my decisions. You may not see it the same way that I do, but if it weren't for Zate, then it would have gone over much better, Leesra reasoned. Perhaps, however, your job as an officer is to make difficult decisions. I see that that is what you did now. There's no denying that we are better off because you refused Zate's suggestion. Thank you, Ensign. Moving on, there is always work left to do. We are dispatching your team to the Intar system. You will meet up with Ensign Kurth for a follow-on mission. So soon? We just got back, Leesra complained. I wish that I could give you a longer leave here, however. Things have changed. Knowing that there are more humans still present in the galaxy, and with less benevolent intentions than our recent guest, we have much to do. Upon arrival, Ensign Kurth will fill you in on your task. You are to gather your crew and leave at once. I do not wish to work with Zate going forward. I am requesting that they be reassigned. Not possible. We are already in short supply of competent extants. Then I'm recommending her for promotion, effective immediately. Captain, you cannot recommend them for promotion merely to avoid working with them. This is far too early in their service timeline anyway. I will be denying it. Since everyone seems to think they did an excellent job with my report, I'd say they've earned it. I will still be putting in the paperwork. Very well. Even if it goes through against my recommendation, they will still accompany you on this mission. You are dismissed, Captain. Marketh waved his paw to dismiss her and went back to his work. Leesra left the room and contacted Argall, informing him that he was needed as soon as possible. She gathered a few items from her room and made her way out to the spaceport to prepare for departure. Human POV. Systems seem good. Thanks for getting that manual on how to operate this thing. Human was sitting in the cockpit of his newly acquired ship, starting it up for the first time. Have you inspected the trigger parameters for that self-destruct device? Indeed, no hidden or remote triggers. I can safely say that it won't just detonate when we leave the system. Any chance we can get it deactivated once we're out of here? Human asked as the engine started up, the ancient striker trembling all around them. Tic-Tac was placed in the co-pilot's seat, various wires sprouting out of him and into the ship's out-of-place modernized controls. Not without tearing the cockpit apart and reconstructing it. It should not be an issue. We'll just have to live with it. Ready to get going? Human asked excitedly. Where to Captain? Tic-Tac asked, assigning Human the title. Don't start with that, Human grinned. Set us out for the nearest developed system. This thing could use some upgrades. I've already started drafting up improvements to the slip drive to increase its speed exponentially. I may be restricted from their military systems, but the public networks still have nearly limitless amounts of information. As unwelcoming as our hosts were, they had the decency to provide us with enough of their currency to be self-sufficient for some time. Things just keep getting better and better for us then, Human stated as the ancient striker lifted itself off the ground. Its old engines roared louder than anything else in the spaceport, drawing the gaze of everyone on the ground as they lifted off and into the sky. The blocky transport shook and rattled as they attempted to break free of Iluris's gravity, sounding like it would break apart at any second. Once they were out and among the stars, the ship's protest died down and the combustion engines cut off, their speed remaining constant as they slowly traversed the void. Inputting coordinates, prepare for slipspace activation, Tic-Tac warned. A second later, Human was forced against the back of his seat at the sudden increase in acceleration, the dampeners unable to completely negate the shift in inertia. So how long until we arrive? 3 days. I'm bringing us to a planet called Intar, a mixed-species colony world. They have massive industrial centers, so we should be able to acquire hardware at a low cost. We also need to stock up on entangled network particles when we arrive. Should I put you under for the journey? Yeah, go ahead. Wake me if there's any problems. Human instructed, and then like a switch being pressed, he was asleep. Human never dreamt when Tic-Tac forced him to sleep. It was like blinking once, and then you were awake. But there was the knowledge that time had passed. He opened his eyes and looked out of the cockpit. A large red planet, the red land masses broken apart by long yellow streaks, that spider-webbed across its surface, branching out in all directions. Along the streaks were the marks of civilization, but ended a short distance from their edges. Thin cities followed along the river's contours and lined the entire canyon network. Welcome back to the world of the waking. I've gone ahead and taken the liberty to contact a mechanic on the planet's surface. We'll be reaching the atmosphere momentarily. I'm bringing us in on a shallow vector to burn less fuel. Brace yourself. They burned over through the atmosphere and came down along the edges of the widest river. The urbanization on either bank only stretched for a couple miles out from the water's edge and gave way to a thick red jungle, with trees stretching into the sky, higher than any of the skyscrapers that dotted the cities. Once they were landed in a sparse shipyard, the duo descended from the exit ramp to see a tall, slender creature waving at them from across the yard. He was tall and incredibly thin, walking with cybernetics that allowed him to survive the gravity of this planet. The metal exoskeleton sat just above his nearly pitch-black and featureless skin. A face with too many eyes to count peered over at them. When he spoke, it sounded like a series of connected whispers, easily gliding from one word to the next. "You must be the ones who reached out to me about some ship work. Can't say I've seen anything quite like you, though." "What world do you hail from?" the alien asked, the sound seeming to come from him without any discernible mouth. "I wasn't actually born on a world, just passing through and hoping to get some work done," Human explained. "A nomad, I see. You types are always great company. I'm sure you've got plenty of stories from your travels." The mechanic pulled over a small cart filled with different tools and miscellaneous parts. A large, bulky interface with an abundance of wires sat on the top. "Not particularly. This is only the fourth world I've been to," Human replied, dodging the inquiry. "I got the plans that you sent me. However, I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to do. Slip drives are pretty fragile, and there isn't much left to improve. They've come about as far as they can, but I haven't had much time to really look the modifications over," he explained, nimbly typing away on the oversized keyboard attached to the car. "They weren't my plans. Here, this should be able to help you," Human said, removing Tic-Tac and placing him down next to the alien. "Greetings. I was the one who drafted the modifications. I can assist you with any questions or troubles you may have during the process." Tic-Tac reassured him. "Is that an autonomous computer? I don't feel comfortable working with that. Did anybody else see this before you came here? You do realize these are highly illegal if someone finds out." "He can pretend quite well. Don't worry about it. If anyone in power really wanted him gone, it would have already happened by now," Human declared, and walked onto the ship, grabbing an interface pad that came with the ship. "I'm going to grab some things in town. How long do you think it'll be?" These don't even make sense," the mechanic said, going over the schematics on his cart. "Most of these modifications don't even seem possible." "Theoretically they are, however, this may be the first time they will be implemented in an actual unit. I sourced the modifications from current research being done by teams across 20 systems and compiled them together myself." Tic-Tac explained. Human cut back into the conversation. "Anyway, how long? If these are possible, then days at the least. This'll be rather expensive as well," remarked the mechanic. "That's fine. We've got nowhere else to be. I'll be around later if you need another hand," Human offered. "I'll call my partner for this. If we can make it work, this'll be the advancement of the century. If we can keep these once we're done, I'll do it free of charge," offered the alien. "That will not be possible. Upon completion, the plans will automatically dissolve from your systems. We would rather keep this to ourselves." "I hope you understand," Tic-Tac informed the mechanic. "Fine. Twice the price, then," he countered. "Whoa, I don't know how much we're already giving you, but—" Human started. "Acceptable. Bring in your partner so we can begin," answered the computer. "I will take it from here. You may run your errands now," Tic-Tac said, addressing Human. "All right, then. Ping me if there's any problems," he said, walking away from the port and into the town. Other than the occasional odd look, Human had no issues as he made his way around town. Using the interface that was left to him, he purchased some items for the ship, along with some sets of tools to allow him to complete any projects that he may have in the future. After the third day, the mechanic finished the modifications and gave Human a rundown on all the changes. We updated the physical engines as well to more modern standards. But we couldn't do anything about how loud they are. You may receive some complaints about that from some authorities. A shame if you ask me, a beauty like this should be preserved, he said, admiring the old striker. And with the slip drive modifications, trips that would have taken weeks before could, if it works properly, should now only be a day or less. Never in my time here did I ever expect to do a project quite like this. I have to thank you for the opportunity. Of course, I'm glad you were able to get it all working right. If that'll be all, I think we'll be on our way now, Human said, extending his hand to the mechanic. What is that? He asked, looking down at his outstretched hand, confused. Oh, I was just thanking you. Right, no problem, the alien said, putting his hand forward but not touching Human's, unsure what the gesture meant. Okay then, ready to go, buddy? Human asked after Smothers as he reached down and picked up Tic Tac. Affirmative. The pair boarded the craft and found their place behind the controls and started it up once more. What's next on the itinerary? Plot a course for the prime system. Third planet. There's something I need to check there. We are returning to the old Illyrian world. Are you sure that is wise? It is in the middle ring, which is currently disputed space. We could run into some trouble. It's a dead system. The only reason anyone was there last time was because they were instructed to go there. I need to confirm something. Understood. Plotting our route now. They pulled away from the crimson planet below and activated the experimental drive. It hummed to life much more furiously than before. A high-pitched whine shook the hull of the ship as it attempted to engage. Can the dampeners handle the new upgrades? You had those changed too, right? Potentially. It's best if you hang on tight. And as he finished the sentence, Human lurched back in his seat and blacked out. He came to later checking the timestamp in the corner of his visor. 2 days had passed since he was last conscious. Is that going to happen every time we make a jump now? Unfortunately, though, I would say the saved time is worth it. I could have woken you up sooner, but it was not necessary. I take it we're here then? Yes, what was it that you wished to confirm? Bring us to the wreckage of the precursor. It should still be here in orbit around prime H197. I need to see it. I assure you they are gone. There is nothing left to see. Bring us to it, Human instructed stubbornly, refusing to back down. Very well. After a few more minutes, they arrived at the last known location of the precursor. Outside the cockpit, debris was coming into view all around them. They navigated the wreckage of smaller ships, heading towards the epicenter of the wreckage. A few minutes later, they reached the center of the remains. Visible in front of them were the large shattered pieces of a once massive dreadnought. Large chunks of the ancient ship drifted through space, showing no signs of life or any recent activity. As I stated, there was no possible way for any survivors to escape. Without any working ships or FTL technology, anybody that managed to survive would have died not long after the precursor's destruction. I detect no signs of life outside. I just had to be sure. The way they talked back on Aluris, it just made me doubt myself. Thank you. We can move on now. I don't want to dwell on this anymore. Human sighed, filled with relief that his suspicions were false. Where should I bring? Tic Tac started, but then paused for a moment. We just received a transmission. Only the OF knows the network key of this ship. I thought we told them not to contact us again. What could they possibly want this time? Decrypting it now. It is a video communication. Displaying it on your visor now. Tic Tac finished, a window popping up in the center of Human's vision. It showed the recording of a security camera aboard the Scav, dated minutes ago. Before it played, he heard the robotic voice of Zate ring in his ears. Human, by the time you view this transmission, we will be deceased. Chapter 14. By the time you view this transmission, we will be deceased. We currently detect a ballistic projectile that has penetrated our containment unit. It will pass through our vital components in 0.031 seconds, rendering us inoperable. We have already come to terms with our fate, but are composing this message in the hope that you may be able to assist us even after we are gone. This will be our final action. Our recent assignment was compromised, and our crew was lured into an ambush. Following this statement are the security recordings up until the composition of this message. The video displayed an interior view of the Scav's common room. Leisra welcomed another Illyrian on board the ship, who was accompanied by 3 soldiers in combat gear. One of them strode past the captain and into the control room out of frame. "Greetings, Ensign Kurth. We have reported as instructed and are awaiting our follow-on mission." "Although, sir, I must ask, is greeting us like this necessary?" Leisra asked with a hint of confusion. "Excellent timing, Captain, and I wanted to extend my regards personally before you arrived on my vessel." Kurth said with his paws clasped behind his back. "Before we proceed, I wish you to brief me on the details of your previous assignment. It appears that I have not been updated on the matter." "My apologies, sir. I am not at liberty to discuss that particular venture. It is classified. I hope that is not why we were requested specifically." "That was an order, Captain," Kurth said, narrowing his eyes, "and my orders not to discuss it have come from someone higher than you." "I'm sorry, sir." "Unfortunate. I was hoping it would not come to this," the officer remarked, looking down in disappointment. "Sir?" Leisra said, stepping back cautiously. "Take the shot prior." The ensign ordered, and the recording froze, followed by the return of Zate's voice. "We were misled by Ensign Kurth, and I do not know the current status of my crewmates. The last recorded moment you just witnessed took place seconds before you should receive this message. It is our fault that these events transpired. If we had been more vigilant, then we could have foreseen the attack, but we were too occupied attempting to analyze the other ship. We were unable to breach its systems in time until it was too late. We learned that the ship Ensign Kurth arrived in had departed from a core military outpost on the edges of their occupied space. We now believe that he has affiliations with our enemies and seeks to uncover the true scope of what we found in the original Illyrian system. If either Argol or Captain Leisra are still alive, then they will be taken into core custody soon and interrogated, or worse. We will be transmitting a similar message to our superiors on Iluris. However, it is unlikely they will allocate the resources for a recovery mission into hostile space. And due to political and military bureaucracy within the OF, Leisra and Argol will be within core territory long before such an endeavor could be underway. After weeks of deliberation between us, we have concluded that you are the only alternative that bears a high probability of success for the safe retrieval of our crewmates. We understand your unwillingness to complete tasks for others at this time, especially if those tasks may involve violence. However, you are the only option that they have left. We hope that you consider our request for aid. Embedded in this transmission are the coordinates of where Ensign Kurth's vessel set out from before arriving here. If they are brought beyond that outpost, then there will be no hope of their retrieval due to the failsafes within your ship that would prevent you from going further. At the conclusion of this message, we will terminate any perception alteration software and accept the inevitable. We apologize for the methods we used to handle our previous assignment regarding you, and any strain it may have caused for you and your partner. If you accept our request and ensure the safe return of our friends, then you may prove that our initial conclusions about you may have been wrong. Zate paused as if the word itself was unfamiliar. Extant Unit Z8 of the Scav signing off. Plot a course for those coordinates, Human said without hesitating. I do not suppose there is anything I can say that would convince you that this situation does not involve us. No, now do it, Human ordered. The feelings that he had tried to suppress up until now started to surface in his words. We do not owe them, Tic-Tac started but was cut off. They saved us, we saved them. Then we're even and we'll be on our way. Now let's go. It would be reckless of us to charge in without a weapon at this time. We need a plan. We don't need one. I am one. We leave now and that's final. Very well. I will have to calculate a route which directs us around our unauthorized space. But even with that, we should be able to arrive at the location not long after them. Send it, Human instructed, and a second later he blacked out. Lysra POV. I'm giving you an opportunity to save yourself from a much worse alternative. Just tell me what I want to know, and things will be much easier for you, for me, my employer, your purple friend. What did you find that was so important that it had to be expunged from every networked of server? Do your worst. Anything's better than working with someone who's a traitor to their own species, Lysra retorted, glaring up at the ensign through small slits cut into the metal of her tiny cage. You were in a position to take up a tactician spot for the Corps when you were growing up, correct? It seems that if it weren't for a single test score, then you would be in a very similar situation as myself right now. So do not act righteous now when you would have done the same thing then. That was a long time ago. I would never turn my tail on my people now. I don't care what you do with me. I won't be bought out like you. I don't think you realize just how bad things will get for you once you leave here. They have no intention of trying to bribe you. Of that I am certain. You had the chance to save yourself from the worst of it, but that has since passed. Kurth explained, leaning over the restrained captain, peering through the bars in the small crate. I'll take my chances, thanks. So be it. It is not my place to interrogate you. I was merely assigned to bring you in, nothing more. Though I cannot say I didn't warn you. Consider your current conditions a pleasant calm before the storm. They will be here to retrieve you momentarily. Enjoy your stay. Kurth shut off the lights and closed the door, leaving Lysra alone in the dark, curled up in the cramped crate. Human POV. 10 minutes until arrival. We need to prepare, Tic-Tac declared as Human opened his eyes and sat up in the chair. A small timer blinked at the top of his vision, showing the time until arrival. How long was I out? Human asked groggily. 6 hours. Thankfully, after a jump, I am able to wake you whenever necessary, but it was not needed until now. Good to know. Do you know what this outpost looks like? Building layout, troop estimates, defense capabilities. Negative. We are going in blind. Just like the old days, nothing new to me there. When we leave the slip, if I black out again, wake me as soon as you can. Try to disengage as close to the outpost as possible. We don't know the capabilities and don't want to get shot down the second we arrive. Noted, I'll lower the ramp the second we exit and have the rear of the ship oriented towards the facility. Are you confident in making a jump between the two while moving? Not a problem, Human said, looking down and checking off the last bits of gear that was still left on his armor. We'll need to refill NCs after this. Only got a week left. One problem at a time, we need to get out of here alive. Then we can worry about your nutrient canisters. I'll attempt to maneuver the ship out of the area with a short-range jump and return it when we are ready to depart. I will be splitting a portion of myself off to stay with the ship. He'll be needed to operate it while we're gone. Sure, that's a good idea. Not good to split yourself up. Bad habit to start again. I will be fine. I'm conducting a 90-10 split. Say hello to Tic-2. The ship's computer console shifted from blue to green before speaking aloud. Greetings, crew. Tic-2 operational, requesting full ship control. Granted, so we jump down. I find a door, then what? Human asked, leaning back in the pilot's chair. Their networks will likely be contained, so once aboard we will need to find a physical interface in order for me to gain access. Tic-Tac explained as the countdown in Human's visor steadily dropped. The duo spent the next few minutes conducting their final prep in silence as the timer reached 30 seconds. Ready for slip drop, Tic-Tac notified. Human swiveled the chair around, leaning into their momentum, hoping to resist the effects of their quick exit, but to no avail. A second later, he felt his body spike with adrenaline as he opened his eyes and jumped from the seat, running to the back of the aged striker. The ramp finished lowering just in time for him to launch himself out the back and towards the outpost outside. Tic-Tac's positioning had been impeccable, only a couple hundred meters from the facility. Outside, he saw a roughly spherical compound, floating untethered among the stars. The inky blackness all around confirmed there were no objects nearby for the base to orbit. The outpost sported 3 ports, only one in use, which connected a large modern cruiser, roughly half the size of the station itself. Well, behind him, his ship quickly blinked back out of existence just as soon as it had come in, the entire ordeal taking less than a few seconds. After a few moments more of floating through the vacuum of space, He felt gravity take over and pull himself down into the outpost. He rolled as he made contact with the round metal station, crouching down and scanning for an entryway. 30 meters, 10 o'clock. Potential airlock, highlighting it now, Tic-Tac said as a small orange blip appeared in that direction. Human bounded towards it, the lower gravity allowing him to reach it in only a few bounds. Once he reached his destination, he inspected the door for controls, soon finding a manual release lever. He made his way down the hallway to the opposite door and looked for another release, finding none. Giving up on his search, he reached down, digging his fingers into the metal and forced it open. A strong gust of air rushed past, equalizing the pressure of the hallway behind him. Excellent work. No alarms yet. However, they will have noticed the drop in air pressure in this area. We need to get moving. As Tic-Tac finished speaking, a pair of Endurans rounded the corner, wearing different gear from the ones in Zate's video. Unlike the white armor of the OF, these ones were covered in the same deep green as his ship, in a large contrast to their bright red and yellow skin. They looked up and saw him standing there at the end of the hallway. Initiating combat mode, standby, Tic-Tac warned, and as seconds later, Human's visor lit up with a frenzy of increased activity. The two soldiers at the end of the hallway were outlined in red, parts of their body exposed from armor glowing brightly to indicate vulnerable points. A green-dotted path on the ground plotted the optimal course to his enemies. Tic-Tac's voice sounded in his head at lightning speed, faster than he would have been able to understand if it had been spoken. Each instruction from the computer lasting less than a second in real time. CQB preset selected. CSR-5 rifle, ballistic, ineffective. Enduran combatants, highlighting weak points, prioritize left. Oh shit, oh fuck, yo, they said in unison as one of them quickly raised its rifle, while the other quickly tried pulling an interface pad off of its chest harness. Human sprinted down the hallway towards them, covering the span of 10 meters in under a second. Before the first could get his rifle up, Human had it in one of his hands, shattering the barrel of the weapon. He grabbed one of the Enduran's wrists, target carpal joint, remove combat abilities, and twisted it, hearing the snap of bones and tearing of cartilage that followed. He pulled against the arm and turned, forcing the soldier against the side of the hallway. He brought up his other hand against the back of the Enduran's head and smashed it into the paneled wall. One immobilized, one remaining. Sidearm CS-S2 ballistic, ineffective. The second soldier reacted by dropping the pad and drawing a sidearm, hoping to be able to act in time. Human yanked the unconscious soldier from the wall, positioning him between himself and the other attacker. A few shots rang out, impacting the soldier's armor before Human threw him at the shooter. The pair tumbled to the ground as an alarm started to sound, the lights within the facility fluctuating between red and white. Human strode over to the conscious one and reached down, taking its face in hand and smashed it back down onto the floor. He picked up the interface pad as he stepped over the bodies, pulling a small cable off of Tic-Tac's pack. See if this has anything useful. Analyzing. Caution 3. Approaching 12 o'clock, left intersection, 15 meters. Human heard the footsteps and heavy breathing coming from the left. He ran forward and dropped down sliding as the trio rounded the corner. Two Brunts and an Enduran jumped in surprise as he skidded up to them, too close to properly maneuver their weapons. Weak point tibiotalar joint, hinder mobility. Human locked his eyes on the glowing red ankles of the one nearest to him. He reached out and crushed the bones between his fingers and pivoted his body to kick the next one's ankles. His shin made contact with the creature, and soft flesh gave way to solid metal as the soldier fell to the ground with a pained wail. The fallen Brunt lurched at his leg, its toothy maw open to bite down on his calf. He stood up, pulling the leg out from underneath the Brunt, whose ankle he still held, sending him tumbling to the ground as well. The Brunt snapped its jaws around Human's leg and cried in pain as its teeth were shattered against the metal armor. He stomped down on its neck with one boot, and the creature's body fell limp, paralyzed. The uninjured Enduran lunged at him, attempting to shoulder charge him to the ground. With the full force of his hulking body behind the attack, he managed to knock Human back a step, strike to the cranium, stun the occipital cortex, momentary blindness. Human reached up and grabbed the Enduran's shoulders and smashed his helmet against the alien's forehead. The crunch of bone was much louder than Human was expecting. When he pulled his head back, half of the Enduran's face was caved in, nearly unrecognizable. The body fell backwards onto the ground lifeless, blood pooling onto the pristine white floor. Unlike the last time, there was no chemical reward for taking a life. The expected rush of euphoria and dopamine that his implant would inject never came. All that came was the fading sound of a beating heart and his own pulse beating in his head. One eliminated, two critical. Further action required to eliminate. Human looked back at the least injured brunt, attempting to crawl away from him. He dismissed the creature and reached down to pick up one of the discarded rifles, checking the weapon in his hands. CSR 5 rifle, 55-round capacity, highlighting functions. Small instructions prompted above the various mechanisms of the weapon, instructing him how to use it. He turned back and continued down the hallway. The small green dotted line materialized in his vision to guide him through the facility. Interface scan complete. Command room second left. 30 meters, double doors, reinforced. He reached the doors in question and kicked them open, leveling the rifle at the room. 7 heartbeats detected, highlighting targets. 3 brunts to his left yelped in surprise as he turned to face them. Avoiding armor. Brachial artery exposed. 30-second bleed out. Human placed a pair of shots in the first one just on the outside of its frontal armor plates before moving to the next, shooting twice more. The last scrambled behind a bulky interface desk as the first 2 fell to the ground. 2 o'clock, 2 Endurance, CPR 1 rifles, lethal to undersuit, prioritize immediately overriding. Human felt his suit tighten and turn him quickly in the direction of the threat before he could react on his own. The 2 had nearly responded in time before he put shots at the glowing red portions of their body. One of them managed to get a round off before being hit, the plasma shot impacting Human's front armor plate. The shooter fell back, succumbing to his wounds before he could get another volley. Single heartbeat, front right corner, 7 meters. Human saw a red dot materialize on the other side of the wall in the corner he couldn't see yet. He breached into the room and fired at the corner as he cleared the door. A small brunt was situated against the wall, waiting for him to enter. The first shot impacted its armor plates, but the second pierced one of its eyes. He turned back left towards the enemy that had ducked behind the desk and quickly worked along the edge of the room towards an angle providing visibility. Human glanced down at the projected number floating next to the magazine, ensuring he had enough rounds left in the rifle. The soldier peeked out and fired before Human had fully pied the corner. He dropped to the ground, firing as the kinetic rounds impacted one of the gaps in his armor. They were repelled by his undersuit, the power percentage lowering by 1% in the corner of his visor. He returned fire from the floor and quickly dispatched the last remaining brunt. 6 eliminated, 1 remaining. Human stalked into the center of the room, scanning it for the final target. He listened, hearing shaky breaths and a rapid heartbeat coming from under a console in the back of the room. He slowly made his way up to the computer, recognizing the tiny heartbeat of an Illyrian. "Step out now," Human instructed. The small form of Ensign Kurth emerged from behind the console with his paws in the air, tail twitching with fear. I don't understand the meaning of this. Where are they?" he asked coldly, rifle leveled at the small creature. Why are you doing this? We did..." Kurth tried to ask, but was cut off. "Lysra, Argal, tell me where they are. Please, just calm down and we can discuss." "Where are they?" he yelled, dropping the rifle and grabbing the small creature, pinning him to console. He felt its fragile body tense in his grip, a familiar feeling, and he had to resist the urge to crush the Illyrian then and there. Combatant, behind, 10 meters, closing, over. Before Tic-Tac could finish his warning, Human felt someone grab him under his shoulders. He was pulled back and thrown towards the front of the room, crashing into one of the interface consoles as he fell. Before he could pick himself up off the ground, he froze in place as the new attacker spoke in a familiar language. "Well, I'll be damned. Been a long time, Drill. You're supposed to be dead." Chapter 15. "Well, I'll be damned. Been a long time, Drill. You're supposed to be dead." Human slowly pulled himself to his feet and forced himself to look at the source of the voice, already knowing what he was going to see. Standing between him and Kurth was another human, its heavy plating shifting colors before settling on the standard black, revealing a sleeker version of the same armor that Human wore. He sported a similar pack affixed to his back, the same piercing orange visor, and carried himself with an overconfident stride that commanded the attention of everyone in the room. And plastered across his chest was an all-too-familiar number designation. "No, you're all dead. I made sure of it," Human stammered, struggling to come to terms with the ghost before him. "Hate to be the bearer of bad news, Drill, but I'm very much alive, despite your best efforts." The other human replied, stepping forward and cracking his knuckles. "I gotta say, I'm probably more surprised than you are right now. I mean, the great deserter in the flesh. Must be my lucky day." Human stepped back shakily, his heart rate picking up and drowning out the sounds around him. "This isn't real. This has to be some sort of trick. He can't be alive," he thought, trying uselessly to steady his racing thoughts. "Huh. If I didn't know you any better, I would have thought you were angry by that tone you were using with my pal Kurth. But you don't get angry, right?" The soldier opposite him paused for a moment, clearly listening to something. "Wow. Elevated heart rate, shaky breathing. Never thought it was possible for the great nines to be scared of something. And me at that? I should be honored." Human tried backing up, wanting nothing more than to put as much distance between himself and the thing standing before him. "Trying to leave already? I just got here, Drill. Too good to talk to your old trainee?" Attempted systems breach. "I will be occupied. You are on your own." Human heard tic-tac in his head as he finally steadied himself enough to confront the other human across from him. "I don't know how you're back. I don't know why. But it doesn't matter. I'm not letting you walk out of here alive. I'll finish what I started all those years ago." As he spoke, he took a combat stance, squaring up against his former trainee. "Guess it's about time we got down to it. Shame I didn't bring a weapon for this. But we both know having one wouldn't do either of us any good. Let's see if you've still got it in you, Drill." Once he uttered the last word, without any further warning, he rushed forward. Before Human could step back, the soldier was on top of him, grabbing him under one arm and spinning him over the top of his shoulder, slamming him into the ground. Human rolled out of the way just before his attacker's fist smashed into the floor where he was a moment before, leaving a large dent in the metal. "Slow. I expected you to be faster." Human came out of the roll into a crouch and lunged up towards his target. The soldier spun to the side, and using Human's own momentum, shoved him into another console at the edge of the room. "Sloppy. I thought you were one of the best. The legendary WS 909. Is 1,000 years finally starting to catch up to you?" Human picked himself back up, positioning the console between the two of them. "You never earned the right to call me that." He got out between shaky breaths, looking down at one of the dead brunts on the ground next to him. He quickly ducked down, pulling a steel blade from the combat harness on the body, and sidestepped just in time to avoid being pinned to the wall by another attack. He leaped forward before the other human could recover, and shoved him against the wall, driving the blade towards his visor. The other reached up, slowing the attack as Human gripped the knife in both hands, attempting to drive it further. He grunted from exertion, fighting against the other human's strength, before he felt a boot to the knee, breaking his stance. Seizing the moment, the soldier grabbed the blade and shattered it in his fist. Human smashed his forehead against the enemy's visor, causing a crack to spiderweb across its surface. Before he could land another blow, he felt a knee impact his stomach, and the soldier broke the grapple, shoving him back over the desk. "Not bad, you haven't." Human didn't give him time to finish the sentence. Grabbing a piece of broken glass from one of the smashed interfaces, he launched the glass at him with incredible precision. The jagged piece impaled itself in the small gap between the metal plates on the other human's chest and shoulder. Bright red blood flowed from the wound as the two caught their breath, staring one another down. Haven't lost it," the other human said between ragged breaths. but it'll take a little more than some broken glass to slow me down, Drill. He reached up and pulled the shard out. The blood trickled down for a second longer before stopping completely. Yeah, gonna take a lot more than that. Where were we? Human scrambled backwards, scanning the room for anything he could use as a weapon. Before he could pinpoint anything, the other human vaulted the console, attempting a quick kick. Human leaned back just in time, grabbing the outstretched leg, and flung the human to his left into the desk that Kurth was cowering in. Kurth tried to scurry out from underneath the piece of ruining furniture, attempting to flee to safety. "Oh no, you're not going anywhere. I can still use you." The human reached out, grabbing the Illyrian in his hand, wrapping his fingers around the creature's torso. "Wait, sir! Please! The little officer was never able to finish his sentence. The other human tightened his grip, crushing the puny creature's spine. He proceeded to easily tear one of the legs off of the deceased officer's body, reaching into the creature's carcass and rending the largest bone free. He snapped the end of it off without any effort, now wielding a crudely made dagger from the Illyrian's femur, whining all the way till the end. Typical anomaly. They're more useful like this anyway, if you ask me. The human stopped, admiring its work before turning back towards its target. "Now why are you even here, Nines? Don't tell me you came for one of these pathetic things. What could they possibly do for someone like us? Just objects to be used and discarded like the abominations they are. I don't owe you an explanation. You didn't get it then, and you won't get it now. I gave up on trying to change you all long ago." Humans said, glaring daggers at the blood-spattered person across from him. "Oh, you gave up on us? Funny. I remember you doing much more than that," the soldier said, shifting his gaze from his newly crafted weapon to human in front of him. "Last thing I remember, you tried to kill all of us. You never deserved to be on the pedestal we put you on. I'm glad none of them are alive to see how weak you've become. They'd be disappointed. You haven't changed at all. You always were my biggest disappointment." Human sighed, readying himself for another attack. His words seemed to have struck a chord as the other human lunged forward, jagged bone clutched in his hand. Human tried to dodge the attacks, but his opponent was faster, stronger, younger. The makeshift knife found its place in the armor gap by Human's ribs, his undersuit unable to repel a non-metallic weapon. It was quickly followed up by another attack as Human stumbled backwards. He reached up, trying to block with his hand, catching the sharp bone in the center of his palm. With his other hand, he tried to wrench it free from the soldier's grip. Human tripped on one of the bodies behind him, falling onto his back, the blade freeing itself from his flesh. The attacker didn't relent, thrusting the bone downwards, once more piercing the soft space in Human's shoulder, forcing the blade deeper until it was barely visible. "We idolized you, worshipped you, wanted to be just like you," the other human yelled, standing up, planting his heavy boot on Human's neck, pinning him to the ground. "Were you always just setting us up to die, leading us on like animals to the slaughter?" He howled, forcing his weight down, trying to crush Human's neck. "Were you planning that shit from day one? We clawed ourselves into existence. We endured the trials, earned the right to live, just for you to tear it all away. I'll make you suffer for all the lives you took. But unlike them, it won't be quick and easy. You'll feel all their pain for them." Human struggled to catch his breath, feeling the tension in his undersuit giving out, the power percentage reading in his visor dropping by the second. "For Mags, for Sev, for 8, all of them. When I'm done here, you'll wish you stayed dead. We thought you actually cared about us. Was it all just an act? Tic-tac, I need you now. Please," Human thought, begging for any sort of assistance. Indisposed, endure. I did care. I really did. I tried to teach you all better, to teach you how to feel." Human got out between choked gasps, reaching up to try to force the weight off of him. "Oh, that it was. How to feel. Look where that got you." The boot eased up, only to be stomped back down even harder. "You were always weak, always different. The weak only deserve death in this world. You earned the right to live through suffering, through struggle. And I've more than earned my life by now. Your story ends here, Drill. Counterattack complete, overriding MS tension, Administering Combat Chim 3, standby. Tic-Tac's voice sounded in Human's head as his vision was starting to fade. He felt his body surge with energy as he was injected with a cocktail of various chemicals. His hands tensed around the boot, holding him down. Metal groaned for a second before shattering completely. Hands no longer his clenched tight, crushing metal, then tissue, then bone. The Human yelled in pain as his foot was completely and utterly shattered. Human threw his old trainee backwards, standing up and catching his breath. "That's where you're wrong. My story's just begun. I didn't escape that hell just for it to end there, and it's certainly not going to end to the likes of you." Human stepped forward with a newfound fury, artificial adrenaline coursing through his veins, his anger fixated on the only thing in front of him. He stopped, listening for a moment. Elevated heart rate, shaky breathing. "Seems like you're the one who's scared now." The Human scrambled back, trying to pull himself to his feet, but collapsing back to the ground with each futile attempt. Human strode forward, tearing the Illyrian femur from his shoulder, closing the distance between them. "You're going to die, and I'm going to rid the galaxy of our kind once and for all. Then the universe will finally be a better fucking place." Human grabbed the soldier's neck, holding him in place as he brought the bone down, forcing it through the glimmering visor. His own face stared back at him in the reflection. The soldier brought his hands up in a futile attempt to block the attack, but was too late. The shard broke through the glass, blood spurting out through the small hole in the center of the mask. Human squeezed his old trainee's neck, the sound of bones snapping underneath the flexible undersuit. He stepped back, looking down at the mirror image of himself bleeding out on the ground before him. It shuddered as it struggled for air, the time between each breath growing longer with every passing second. "It's done. Deactivate combat protocols, Tic-Tac. Let's get what we came here for." Human sighed, turning back towards the main door. Behind him, he heard a sharp inhale as the corpse caught its breath. "Leaving without finishing the job once again? Don't make that mistake twice, Drill," the Human said between fits of coughing up blood. "I may be the first, but I won't be the last. They know you're alive now. They can send all of you they want. They'll need more than just my old students to put me down." "Ha!" he chuckled, spitting out more blood. "They'll only send one. Like I said, I'm not worried. You're a dead man walking, and you don't even know it, Drill," the Human whispered, barely able to get the words out now. "He's alive, you know. And once he finds out you are too," the soldier let out one final laugh, "he's been waiting to be useful again." Who are you talking about?" A tinge of fear evident in Human's voice as he posed the question. He turned around to look at the dying soldier one last time. "Zero?